Red Sky Health. I'm going to introduce my colleague Shirley. I'm going to go through a couple of things, lay out the groundwork what we'll be covering today. One of the things I always like to do is make sure that you look at us on LinkedIn. I'm a big fan of using LinkedIn, so you get a chance to scan the QR code, go to our website, go to our LinkedIn page. We put a lot of thought leadership out there, discussions around claims denials. It's good for you to check that out. I'm not going to go through the entire agenda. You guys can read by yourselves, but essentially we're going to go through some of the challenges we're dealing with when it comes to denials management. Put some numbers out, kind of scary a little bit. Talk about how we are using AI, advanced and Gen AI, in order to solve this problem, make it much better for our constituents. We go through a bit of a success stories, talk through some of the things we're seeing our clients currently experience, and wrap up with kind of the future of claims management. So why are we doing this? As you can see, claims denial is a big problem. It's not getting any better. The last 3 years, we've seen a 26% increase in claim denials. That's not a great thing to have. There's a lot of money that's sitting on the table. And even worse, we're showing almost 50% of the providers are still reviewing their claims manually. I hate to say it, people are prone. We cause problems. We're expensive. So relying on people to do all these things creates challenges. And finally, 86% of those denials that are out there could be resubmitted, fixed and resubmitted for payment. So there's a lot of money being left on the table because of these denials, and that's where the Red Sky Health solution comes in place.
It seems like the speaker.
Let's dig a little bit further. I kind of reworded the question a bit here, it was very lengthy, but a good study from Nature from that talked about why did you increase full-time employees over the last 3 years? And their biggest thing was to work on claims denials. That's a lot of effort. And right next to that, you've got what? How we do more to drive accounts receivable. What's kind of a bummer and disappointing is the third one is handling patients. I'll just stop handling patients. Helping to take care of patient care. So that's the third item on there, why they've hired more people. So if you can use AI to make that better, streamline that process, spend more time on patient outcomes while driving revenue, that's the opportunity. How big is this problem? Almost $48 to rework a Medicaid claim. Almost $64 for a commercial claim. So that's a lot of money just for one individual claim. So it's roughly, and we can argue about numbers, a $20 billion a year problem. So in short, I think we're all agreed the current denial process does not work. It's very manual. There are very limited tools that can help to make this better. And it's very error prone at the same time. So there's not enough time and spending it's put to fix this. And finally, the biggest problem is many denials are untouched. So you've got these denials, you've got cash. We're focused on doing that, and not in patient care. A big issue. This bottom number, some of us on our team have been kind of arguing over this, is that nearly 20% of all claims are denied. It's a problem. Almost 60% of those returned and denied claims are never resubmitted. We've had some discussions. So, trying to understand the problem of what we're dealing with, how are we going to fix it? We'll take up a second here. We're calling our solution Daniel. Very clever play on the word denial. That's what it does. We make things sound good. But to really add the depth to this, we're with my colleague Jay. Jay's got over 20 years of experience in the insurance. He knows this stuff cold.
Yes.
Looks like I have to study. So firstly, thank you, Doug. It's really a pleasure being here today. I hope you're all excited as I am. We've got something really exciting to share with all of you. If you start looking at this slide, the first thing you're going to see up on the left is identification, fixing on a real-time basis, and submission. Keep focus on that. There is no organization out there who can fix something real-time without human intervention. That's really what this is all about. Now let me first back up and start talking about that 60% number. There's a lot of debate. Is it 60? If you decide to downgrade it by 50%, just cut it down. It's still billions of dollars. Just stop and think for a minute. If an insurance company is refusing to pay that, and I've worked for insurance companies most of my life, I know exactly how it is. Who do you think that bill goes to? Ultimately, it all gets balance billed to the patient. That's people like you and I, and our families get impacted. So clearly, we've got to make a difference. And Red Sky Health has a solution that's AI empowered. Identifies the issue, fixes the issue online, and resubmits the claim. And we're going to share with you some statistics on this later on the slide. But what's most important to recognize is to make this happen, we rely on structured data, which is 837s, NC 5010, X12, 837 EDIs, and 835s. 837s are essentially the encounters when a patient meets a doctor that is codified on a claim, submitted, and the 835 is the electronic remittance advice that comes back, which identifies whether you pay, you deny it, what you pay on it, and if you deny that claim, what are the denial reason codes. The model requires 3 to 4 years worth of historical data and is powered by advanced machine learning and generative AI algorithms. Let me move on to the next slide. The next 3 or 4 slides talk to a build. We're going to talk about how the model works. Then we're going to talk a little bit about how Daniel fits into the overall process, the impact of Daniel, and then finally, can you hear me? And then finally, we're going to talk about some results. We're going to show you some statistics on the real-time numbers. So let me start off with, it's a 4-step process. The first step being pattern identification. What I mean by pattern identification is insurance companies have specific payment denial patterns. Providers have billing patterns and the historic illness profiles of members. They're all studied by these algorithms. Now keep this in mind as well. There are a lot of publications out there, like Kaiser Family Foundation, that points to how payers perform. They actually publish metrics on denial rates by payer. And if there's something interesting about that, you'll realize is within a particular state or within a particular community, the same doctors sees members with similar risk profiles, and yet you have a disparity in denials. That clearly tells you that the reimbursement and denial patterns of payers are very different. So the model needs to understand that. And that's fundamentally what these patterns do. So these patterns are now fed into the second stage. The second stage is the analysis phase. In the analysis phase, through the patterns, the features that impact the denials are very clearly understood. And what you identify on the claims, as I pointed out earlier, from the 835 remittance advices, you get denial reason codes, and unique to each denial reason codes, there are features that impact it. So once those features are identified, then you formulate the mitigation reasons or the fixes for it. By controlling the temperature on generative AI algorithms, you can actually manage, you come up with a series of different remedial features. The next step is actually coming up with the recommendations. And here is where we actually curate the recommendations with correct coding edits, LCDs, NCDs, payer-specific policies, which are all contextualized. And ultimately, you arrive at a single or multiple recommendations unique to the problem at hand. And the last step, before I talk about how the models, the efficacy of the models, is the fact that we validate those through a precision score. In addition to that, we review those recommendations against historically paid claims and come up with a confidence factor. As with any engagement, as we start off, 100% of the claims are manually reviewed. After the first 90 days, we ensure that everything is above a precision of 95%. And ultimately, those are the ones that go on a claim and out the door. Last but not least, we continually monitor the model to make sure that it's indeed satisfying the purposes it was designed for. The inputs are consistent all the time. And then the last piece of it is we always continually monitor the efficacy of the model in terms of precision as well as latencies. Moving on to the next slide. This is a build-up of how Daniel fits into the overall process. I'm going to walk you through the chronology of a claim. A member sees a provider. Step one is provider codifies the diagnosis, the CPT codes, places service, it generates a claim. claim goes through the clearinghouse to the insurance company. That's step one. Insurance company adjudicates the claim. They either pay the claim, partially paid, or deny the claim. That is transmitted through an 835 remittance advice that goes back from the insurance company through the clearinghouse back to the provider. If it was a partial payment of a denial, this is truly where Daniel gets engaged. Daniel reviews it, identifies the root cause of the issue, formulates a recommendation to validate the precision score of 95 or higher, create a resubmitted claim with a frequency code 7, and we submit that claim on behalf of the provider, and it goes directly to the insurance company. The insurance company goes through the same process of claims adjudication, but this time we ensure that there is 100% payment on that claim. That 835 gets transmitted back to the provider, and the cycle is complete. So this in a nutshell is the history of a claim, or you could call it the life cycle of a denial as remediated or fixed by Daniel. Oops, I didn't realize this. All right, now I'm going to talk about just the impact. When we started this dialogue, we started talking about 60%. You can see up here, 100% of the denials will be processed. So what will be the impact of this? Be timely, accurately, consistent payment, minimal to little human intervention. I'll talk about scenarios where there is human intervention shortly. And clearly a lower cost per claim. That's really our entire objective. And we want to get our providers to spend time where they belong, with the members. And the office staff to be out there, scheduling appointments, focusing on population health. That's really what success is all about. The next step, let me talk about, this is a testimonial from one of our providers. Please, I'll let you read that for a minute. It's again, streamlining the operations, fewer people touching the claim, increased reimbursement. The provider has been engaged with us for over 6 months. Again, the key, identification, fixes on a real-time basis, and submission of the claims. Finally, I want to put some metrics up there. 65% of the claims that were denied were actually addressed on a real-time basis. This is a very critical metric. So essentially, you have no human touch on these claims, on these denied claims. Now, the question you could ask yourself is, geez, why is First Guy ignoring the other 35%? That's not really what the issue is. There are a set of claims that has eligibility issues. There are a set of claims for which you may need a clear, or you may need an authorization number, you may need a referral, or you may need medical records. In scenarios like that, we need to integrate with the PMS and actually extract that and include that as part of your submission. Or you could have scenarios where medical necessity was not met, but the service was rendered. In those scenarios, we have to actually have the charts. We have got bots that are essentially submitted. So those are addressed, but not on a real-time basis. Those have an SLA that vary by provider. But bottom line, I just want to reassure every one of you, 100% of all the denials are addressed by Red Sky Health. Just wanted to thank all of you for being here. I hope you get an opportunity to visit our booth. It's right behind you. We've got a founder and CEO of the company and key executives up there. So, and we've got some webinars coming up as well. Please join us. Please follow us on LinkedIn. And we look forward to your support in bending the cost curve, and together we could be successful in this venture. Thank you.